Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, written by Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm in 1812, read by Papa Scott. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time there lived a vain and wicked queen. Each day she addressed her enchanted mirror. "Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" And each day the mirror replied that the queen was the most beautiful. But one morning the mirror told the queen that it was Snow White, her stepdaughter, who was the fairest in the land. The queen was enraged. She had given Snow White only rags to wear and treated her as a servant. Surely the mirror was wrong. Outside at the courtyard's wishing well, Snow White was happily singing while she worked. Just then a handsome prince rode past and heard her singing. He looked over the wall and instantly fell in love with the beautiful girl. As he serenaded her with his own song, Snow White found herself beginning to fall in love with him too. Watching the way the prince sang to Snow White, the queen became so jealous that she decided to get rid of her stepdaughter forever. The queen called the huntsman to her throne. "Take her far into the forest," she commanded, "and kill her." The huntsman led Snow White deep into the forest, but he couldn't bring himself to harm her. Instead, he told Snow White of the queen's wicked plot. "Quick, child, run! Run away!" he urged. Terrified, Snow White fled into the forest to hide from her stepmother. As night began to fall, Snow White became hopelessly lost. Tired and afraid, she fell to the forest floor and began to cry. When the animals of the forest spied the poor girl, they took pity on her and led her through the woods to a tiny cottage. "Oh, it's adorable!" exclaimed Snow White. The princess knocked at the door, but when nobody answered, she decided to go inside. "Oh my!" she exclaimed. The cottage was a mess. She counted 7 tiny chairs around the table and wondered who might live there. "Must be 7 little children," she guessed. Snow White decided to clean the house from top to bottom. "Then maybe they will let me stay," she said hopefully. With help from her animal friends, Snow White swept the floors, washed the dishes, and cleaned the windows. The little cottage was soon gleaming. After all her hard work, Snow White found herself feeling very sleepy. She made her way upstairs, and with a yawn she lay across a row of tiny beds and fell fast asleep. Snow White had no idea the cottage belonged to 7 dwarfs named Doc, Grumpy, Happy, Sleepy, Sneezy, Bashful, and Dopey. While the princess slept, the dwarfs were heading home after a hard day's work in the diamond mine. Meanwhile, the queen once again asked the magic mirror, who was the fairest one of all? "In the cottage of the 7 dwarfs," the mirror replied, "dwells Snow White, the fairest of them all." The queen was furious. "I'll go myself to the dwarf's cottage," she declared. First she created a magic potion, which transformed her into an old peddler woman. Then she mixed another potion to make a poisonous apple. Whoever bit the apple would fall into a deep sleep, and only love's first kiss could break the terrible spell. The next morning, after the 7 dwarfs had left for the mine, the disguised queen appeared at the cottage window with an apple. "Like to try one?" she asked slyly, offering the poisoned fruit to Snow White. "They do look good," thought Snow White. She took a bite of the apple and a moment later fell to the floor in a deep sleep. "Ha ha ha!" the evil queen cackled as she ran out of the cottage. She would once again be the fairest of them all. Meanwhile, Snow White's animal friends had found the dwarfs and told them the princess was in danger. The dwarfs rushed home just in time to see the old woman running away. "After her!" they cried. The dwarfs chased the woman up a steep, rocky mountainside. Just when it looked like she might escape, a bolt of lightning struck, causing the wicked queen to lose her footing and fall off a cliff, gone forever. When the dwarfs returned home to find Snow White asleep, they were filled with sorrow, thinking she had died. They made a golden bed for their beloved princess and kept watch over her day and night. Then one day, after searching far and wide, the prince finally found Snow White. Recognizing her as the lovely girl he had fallen in love with at the wishing well, the prince leaned over and gently kissed her lips. And with that kiss, love's first kiss, the prince broke the evil queen's spell. Snow White awoke from her deep sleep and smiled with delight when she saw her true love standing beside her. The prince carried Snow White to his horse. "Goodbye," she said fondly to her dear friends, giving each dwarf a kiss on the forehead. Then the prince and Snow White left for his castle, where the two would live happily ever after. The end.